Curtis, we've got you on the rundown this week. Everybody knows you as Mr. Backup, Mr. Data Protection, Mr. Ransomware. Frankly, that's why I wanted to take a closer look at some ransomware stories this week. Because frankly, I think your expertise in this matter is well, certainly beyond mine and beyond a lot of people. So these ransomware attacks are continuing to pose a significant threat across many sectors of the environment, with recent incidents targeting critical industries and causing substantial financial and operational damages. Federal authorities have issued warnings about a surge in cyber attacks that exploit a high severity vulnerability in Veeam software that enables unauthorized access and raises the risk of data theft and ransomware deployment. Healthcare organizations are heavily reliant on Veeam for data protection, and so there's a huge implication for these attacks that's particularly concerning to me. But the impact of ransomware is way beyond this, as demonstrated by other incidents that we've found recently, including companies like Dole, which had a $10.5 million direct cost impact from a ransomware attack, and the ongoing attack on the Dallas Municipal Court Building, of all things, disrupting legal proceedings and potentially exposing sensitive personal and case related information. Since you're an expert and you know about this stuff, please help us understand what is going on with ransomware.
Well, this is one of those where I feel like Henny Penny is saying the sky's falling, but it is getting really bad. These are some great stories. I think the Veeam one frustrates me the most, and this isn't even about Veeam. Veeam announced a fix to that vulnerability days after it was announced. That was in March. So it bothers me. We're now 2 months later, and we're still talking about this vulnerability as being the announcement was from the Fed saying, hey, this is still being used to exploit people. To which I want to say, how, right? How is it that anyone who cares anything about their data hasn't addressed this vulnerability in their Veeam backup servers? I don't understand that at all, right? So the other thing is, regarding Dole, the Dole story was very interesting in that Dole was basically said that their data protection system worked as designed. It only cost them I think it was like $6 million to do the restore. To which I want to say, okay, right, and it was like another $5 million in other costs having to do with continuing operations because they were down for quite a while. And then Dallas, the Dallas story, they're still down, right? This whole week so far. If you need to do, if you want to have a case in the Dallas court, you're not doing it this week because it's still down. We don't know how long it will be down, and there's actually another story that wasn't on this list, and that was Chile. So there's a story that happened a year ago where think what happened to Dallas, but happening to an entire country. So the Conti ransomware group took out almost all of Chile's what we would call federal infrastructure, right? So think of all of the things like the FBI, the CIA, the Supreme Court, the Justice Department. Think about all of those departments that we have. They have similar departments to those, and they all got taken offline with a ransomware attack that also attacked their backup system. And they never recovered. So they're still, as of now, this is a year later, they're still basically rebuilding their federal infrastructure from scratch. That's the thing I think that people need to think about, is that it's not. I think for a while there, what I was saying was, folks, you need to address the vulnerabilities in your backup system. Things like making sure that you're applying the patch that Veeam supplied, making sure that you do all of the things that you need to do to secure your backup system so that it's not subject to an attack that will also take out your infrastructure. Because if that happens, I thought that the worst that would happen would be that you would have to pay the ransom. But the worst is actually worse, in that you might just not exist as a company if the ransomware group feels like it. In this case, Conti, the story actually with Chile, Conti actually apparently used this happening as purely subterfuge, because what they did was, at this moment, they diffused Conti into the woodwork and just passed out all its people to other companies. And so think of that, a ransomware group that is so evil that they attack you and encrypt all your infrastructure and encrypt your backup systems just out of spite, or maybe by a competitor that wants to take you out. So if you're not absolutely terrified about ransomware, I don't know what to tell you. Your company could just basically cease to exist tomorrow. And so you need to be looking at securing your backup infrastructure. To me, it's the first thing. I know, Mr. Backup, of course I say that, but here's the thing. It's Helm's Deep, right? It's the last line of defense, and you need to secure it now. You do need to have something on the front end that is trying to stop ransomware and trying to detect it when it happens so that you can minimize the impact of that. Yes, you need to do all of that, but you need to make sure now that you've done the things and that you need to secure your infrastructure. I think that it should not, for example, share with your Active Directory. I don't think there should be basically, if they hack Active Directory, they should not be able to then directly access your backup system. The stuff on which you're storing your backups should be as immutable as possible. If you're using an on-prem backup system, the best thing today is to make sure that at least one copy is up in the cloud somewhere, stored, in write protected immutable storage. There are some immutable storage on-prem, but even those have some limitations. But, ask so I'll just say this: go to your backup vendor now and ask them what you should do to make your backups from them more secure. I am absolutely sure they will have an answer to that question. So to go back, so the fact that there are apparently still plenty of Veeam customers that haven't gone back to Veeam and said, hey, is there a patch I need to apply? It's very disheartening. So that's my thoughts.
But of course, those of us who've been in IT for a long time understand that the breadth of unpatched, out-of-date systems is large. And the number of systems that are exposed either through misconfiguration or maybe even in some cases intentional misconfiguration just to make life easier on a day-to-day basis is large. I think it's just remarkable to consider, one of the things when it comes to ransomware, I just consider, imagine if this was a physical attack instead of a cyber attack. Imagine if the government of Chile was physically invaded by a gang of criminals who blocked and destroyed all government services. And would the response be, oh, well, we'll better buy some new buildings and set up some new government services over there? Imagine if Dole Corporation had a group of criminals burst into the lobby and burn the building down. Would their response be, oh, well, we better build a new one? There would be a different response. And I think the fact that this is cyber, virtual, soft, I think it really, really changes the way that people approach these things, and not in a positive way. I mean, again, think about it. If the Dallas Municipal Court was shut down by people with guns or bombs or something, there would be not just a federal, there would be an international response. It wouldn't be down for 2, 3, 4 weeks. It would be a massive government response. And I expect honestly, my expectation is that eventually the people in governments around the world are going to say, you know what, we need to treat these things like real physical attacks. And that is not necessarily going to be a great day, because to be honest with you, having the government and the military and the intelligence agencies and everything suddenly getting involved in these things, it just escalates the whole situation. I don't know what to say about it, except that our audience of IT practitioners, IT pros, should listen to Curtis on this one. Update your systems, apply the patches, ask your providers what you can do to mitigate this stuff, because it's going to happen. And you can't rely on the NSA or the Army to protect you from ransomware. It's gonna happen, and you got to protect yourself from it. The other thing that occurs to me about this stuff is that it's important to realize that, as you're pointing out with Chile, the ransomware gangs aren't always after the ransom. And in some cases, they may not even have the ability to decrypt the data. I've heard that as well. I mean, there's wiper ransomware, that is actually not encryption at all. And of course, there's now disclosures that are happening as a result. And of course, data protection doesn't protect you from that. I wonder what you think about that angle, Curtis. So, for example, like in the Dallas case, if these guys exfiltrated all sorts of sensitive case files and things like that, they could theoretically be in a much different ransom position than just basically saying, the stuff's deleted, good luck restoring that.
Yeah, this so-called double extortion has now become the most common method, right? So they exfiltrate some data, and then they say, well, we have this data and we will release it if you don't pay the ransom. And I'll just say, if it's not obvious, I'm not a fan of paying the ransom, right? So because of paying the ransom just encourages more ransoms. And it also encourages, even you specifically, that it targets, it will make other ransomware groups. So, here's a group that paid the ransom. Maybe they'll pay one from us. So not a fan. The difficulty is with the extortion, or the extortionware, where they say we have information. So in the case of the Dallas situation, they're saying they have some data that they're going to publish. What Dallas is saying that they don't, that there's no evidence that they actually have it, that they're just saying that. There are ways for what the groups will do is they say they'll publish it privately. They'll say, this is what we have, buddy, go look. And then you look and you see, and you're like, okay, well, we need to do something. It is much harder to deal with than simply having a good backup system. The only way to fix that one is to have a time machine, right? Is to go back to when the attack happened in the first place. And so that's why you talked, we talked earlier about DDI. DDI is one of the ways that you can, a good DDI system can actually help on the front end of looking for and hunting down and stopping data exfiltration. And so I think that's what companies and organizations need to do, is to add this to the things that they need to look for. But I know that so many companies already aren't doing the basics. There was an attack yesterday that I forget who it was, but in the story it said that if they had enabled MFA, it would have stopped the attack. And I just want to say, I get very frustrated. We're talking about complicated things that we want people to go out and do, use DDI and other systems to look for data exfiltration, and they're not even turning on MFA. I don't know. Do the simple things first, right? Do those simple things. Have a good password management system. Have MFA. these things that and make sure that you're using a different password everywhere. All of those things, do the basic things. Oh, and patch management, right? Those are the top three. You do those three and you're going to stop about 80-90% of the attacks. And then if you're serious, do these other things.
Yeah, do the simple things, control what you can control, and try to prepare for the inevitable, which is that eventually these things are going to start are going to appear in your environment as well.